Hi guys, still here with a new video, and this video will be a best classes to main going into season 2 of Season of Mastery. If they are going to make it, I hope so, but you can also see it as a whatever they are going to put a new fresh server for WoW Classic, which is I think bound to happen mid Uld War, so I think in 1 month or two are going to have a fresh server or Season of Mastery season 2. But this is a subjective list. It is actually a list that I'm going to show you basically for myself. So those are the classes that I want to main the most going into Season of Mastery, with again some reasoning behind it. So why would I put a class into the S tier? Because they are good in PvE, PvP, they're great at their doing, so they're good in leveling, good in gold farming, good in everything, for example. And why would I put it in C tier? Because it is very narrowed down, for example, or shoved into one specific way to play. And then that's for me more of a C tier spec or a C tier class. But I'm going to tell you everything about it on this tier list. There will be timestamps so you can jump around whenever you want. But also I want to again plug my primary channel, which is retail PvP. We're doing a lot of PvP in Dragonflight. There is also a bit of content about Wrath of the Lich King as well, PvP as well. And on this channel, we're covering everything classic. So classic hardcore, classic eras, but also fresh server, Season of Mastery, Warlock PvP, Warlock just in general. So everything on this channel is purely classic, while the primary channel is purely retail. Now, let's start right away on the 2-minute mark, the class tier list. So we're going to start with Druid. That class I've made on the first service of Classic. So whenever we're 2019 and I decided to main a class, I decided to actually main Druid. I think Druid is a very versatile class. I think it's very hard to main because you are pretty much shoved into the Resto Druid department, or you have to be very specific with Feral Druid, which is again a spec that is played and you're pretty much having only one spot per raid, which is easily done because you have a 40-man. But the problem is, gearing wise, you don't have anything exciting to go for. A lot of the gears that you will go for are pretty easily obtainable, and at one point you'll raid basically to do nothing except just do DPS and have a great time with your guild. And PvP wise, Druids are very awesome. You have a lot of great specs. You have Moonglow spec, you have like Boomkin spec, so pretty much going full deep balance Druid. You can also go for a Flag Carrier spec. You have also Feral Druid, like Feral Combat spec, which is pretty much the worst PvP spec out there, in my opinion. But you have ways to have fun. I think it's a very good A-class spec to main. I think it is a better alt class to play in general. Whenever I'm saying spec, it is actually class. Guys, I'm again doing a lot of tier lists for retail. In retail, we only talk about specs and not classes. But right now, we do talk about class, because whenever you're playing a class, you put a lot of hours into it. It's not only to play one spec, but probably all the specs whenever you want. I think it's a great alt class to play. I think if you want a second or third character, Druid is probably the best because it's also a very good leveler. It has some good gold farming possibilities. You are very versatile in the way where if your raid needs a healer, you can heal. If your raid needs you feral, you can play feral, although often not, they don't really need that, but you can still play feral if you want to. If you want to play Boomkin, why not? It's not that great, but if you can play that one spot in the raid where you can actually buff those classes, why not? But also in PvP, just in general, if you like to flag carry, for example, I think it's a great alt class to play. And if you're looking for a second or third character, I think Druid is perfect. But as a main character, you do have to realize that you are a jack of all trades, which is often master of none, and right now it is kind of the case. But in the case where in Season of Mastery they do have changes for class change, like class balance and such, and they have Boomkin and Feral Druids to be more competitive in a way. So for example, Balance Druid adding some mana regen on a lot of stuff, or a bit more damage, and the same for feral druids, like having an extra button to press, like a buff like Berserk, for example. That would make the class jump into S tier, but right now I go with the mindset there will be no changes for classes, and for me it's an A tier spec. Hunter, I think, is a great class to main. It is one of those classes that are very awesome to play, level and feel. You can pretty much do anything solo. You can pretty much self-care yourself most of the time. You can gear yourself pretty easily with Dharma Tribute Run alone. You can also have probably also easy gearing because you don't have a lot of competition in a raid. Your damage is quite nice in phase 1, phase 2. Phase 3 BWL if they have the same phases, and you will do good. And what's good about Hunter is you can melee weave, which is one of the most engaging rotations that you can have in raids. So you will have a lot of movement, a lot of active things to do, and that makes you a little bit less sleepy whenever you're doing raids. And in PvP, you're probably the master of 1v1s. Whenever you have the chance to actually get onto someone on world PvP, you're going to wreck them. In BGs, it's like a BG hero, you're going to do insanely well as well. You don't need rank 14 weapons, for example. You don't need to really grind too much. And I think it's a very, very good class to main. You will always have a spot in raids in general, and it is not the most played spec class in vanilla. It becomes one of the most played classes in TBC, but in vanilla it's still one of those sleeper classes out there in the game. So I think it's a very good one to main. I mained one as well in classic, so I had a druid and a hunter, so I was like the most versatile player in the game pretty much. I think a lot of people actually did the same as me, like going for a druid and then a hunter. But right now, I think Hunter is a great pick, even for a second or third class if you have time. It's fast leveling, good gold making, has always a spot in raids. I think gearing it is also very fun compared to a druid, for example, which gear is not really that relevant for most parts. Like for example, feral druids don't change weapons and headpiece for most of the expansion. Even in TBC, you don't really change the headpiece. Which is the like power shifting headpiece where you gain like energy every time you're going to a shift. But for now, I think it is a S tier class to main. And now I hope they do changes, like for example BM Hunter, to have their pets to scale a bit better. If they actually scaled better, I think it would be a fantastic class to main, also for the DPS meters. I'm a big believer that in classic DPS meters are not that important, and it is something that is implemented from players. But I think classic is much more than just DPS mid race and just parsing. So parsing is fun, don't get me wrong, but I think in general there is more to it than that in classic. Mage. I think Mage is a fantastic class to main. I don't know if I'm going to main one, but I really want to dabble in it. You have two fantastic specs. You have a Frost spec, which is great for PvP, and a Fire Mage spec, which is also great for PvP, but also great for raiding past BWL with the Ignite, rolling Ignite and such. Very fun. You will top the meters at one point in AQ, and I think it's a very good scaling class to main. You can outplay a lot of people in PvP. You can pretty much make warriors miserable. I think it's a very fun class to main, and I will put them at A tier. I will put them at A tier. The reason is you will see a lot of mages, so a lot of competition, but also you have the same competition as a warlock or a Shadow Priest, for example. If Shadow Priest is a thing in Season of Mastery 2, if they still have the debuff limit removed. But right now, I think mages in general, great gold farming. solo levelers as well, AoE farming and such. You can do a lot of things as mage. PvE very good, PvP very good, leveling very good. Everything is very good. So I think for me it is an easy A tier class to play. I don't know if I'm going to main one, but if I main a caster, I think it would be Mage. That is the caster that I'm going to main if I do. Retribution or like Holy Paladin, Protection Paladin is a bit iffy. For me, it's going to be a C tier class to main. If you are going for Retribution, I think Holy Paladin is easily a B tier or A tier class to main. So for me, it's going to depend on you if you want to heal or if you want to play Retribution Paladin. I do want them to change a few things towards specs and classes in Season of Mastery 2, that they take a bit more risks to actually change things up and make it better for everyone. I don't want them to make them OP though. They don't need to slap a 1000 DPS buff towards Retribution, but I think putting in Crusader Strike onto your bars and being able to spend that and have a bit of a mana buff or like a debuff that you can put for the raids that is going to give you mana, like the same for Wrath of the Lich King, where you could give you like a buff to your mana and to your healing whenever you're going to strike the actual bosses. Could be a good thing for Retribution. You will have a spot into a raid, make it maybe a bit easier for the raids, just in general to sustain. But I think that could be very nice for Retribution. In PvP, you're pretty much just a walking dummy. It's very easy to kite, very easy to wreck you. Of course, if you are overly geared, you're going to one-shot someone sometimes. But I think they just miss Crusader Strike to actually be appealing. It's very slow leveling, fast in the beginning, but then slower. It's a bit boring with just auto attacks. Some people do like it, some people don't. Personally, I like Paladin. I main one in Wrath of the Lich King for Retribution, but also Holy Paladin. I feel like they need to change a few things to make it more appealing. But as a whole, Paladin is still a very good class to main. If you want to play Holy Paladin, you will always have a spot in raids, for example. You have a lot of great things like salvation and such. I think in general, it's always needed to have at least 5 paladins into the raid. And in general, it's always good to gear yourself as a holy paladin, because there is always a hammer or something like that that is going to go for a holy paladin. And in general, you're going to feel good if you're playing one. But me personally, I will not main one. Priest is I think a fantastic main class to main. If you want to main a healer, I think Priest is probably the best one. If you want to main Shadow Priest in PvP, you're going to feel like a god most of the time. In PvE, you will have a spot if they're removing the debuff limits. I think you will have a spot as a Shadow Priest, and Shadow Priest is not the most played spec out there, so you will always have some way, somehow, a possibility to make it happen, I would say. If I had to main a healer, I would probably main Priest for sure. I think in general, you will always have some kind of spot, some kind of gearing, some kind of everything as a priest. You're good in PvE. Your leveling speed is not that bad, although a bit boring. Your PvP is quite crazy, because a pre-made group for like PGs, like for example Warsong Gulch, is always going to see like a disc priest, like something fantastic. So they're going to invite you. They're going to see a Shadow Priest, which is also very fantastic. They're going to invite you. For me, it's a very fantastic class to play, and I think I might main one. Generally, I main 3 classes in Classic or in any other expansion. So if I had to choose one for healing and just like Shadow Priest shenanigans, it would be for sure Priest. I think it's a very fun class to main going into Classic. Now, Rogue. I think Rogue is such an interesting class. I wish I wish I could play so many more classes, but I have to make a choice, you know. I'm going to put it in A tier because of the competition. Daggers are going to be very annoying. Like Fury Warriors want basically the same gear as you. Luckily, you have some prior on some things. I think it's a fantastic class to play because you have like two great specs, combat and subtlety. Combat is pretty much PvE, subtlety is for PvP. Assassination is a bit iffy because, again, if they change a few things, I would put assassination a few extra talents or remove a few talents here and there to make it more cohesive. Right now, assassination is pretty much you want cold blood and that's it. Um, so if they could change that, it would make them easily S tier. But for me, because you have to pretty much play combat in PvE and go PvP with subtlety, you can also go PvP with combat, but that's not the best spec out there. Just for that fact, I think it's an A tier class to main. It's still a fantastic class to main, to be honest. It's a very satisfying one to play too. I think you will always have a spot right there if you have a great guild. There is always some possibilities here and there to have fun. So I think Rogue with the shenanigans in PvE, in PvP, the leveling speed, the gold farming, you can farm pretty much in BRD like all those bots are actually doing. I hope they do nerf it or they do remove it, so we can actually like fight those bots. It could be very nice to play in main one. It's also on my list. If I main a melee, I think it's between a warrior or a rogue, or the next class, shaman. I think shaman is a S tier class to main. You have resto shaman. You can play it as a healer. You can go elemental shaman to blast people in PvP, or you can play enhancement shaman and go full unbreakable and just break spirits with your Wind Fury. I think the only problem I see is whenever you're doing PvE and people like if you want to be in a somewhat serious guild, although it's not really needed, enhancement shaman and elemental shaman don't really have a spot. I think the problem is with elemental shaman is again mana. If they actually buff the mana in Season of Mastery 2, it could be very awesome. But I don't know if they're going to do that. And enhancement shaman is too unreliable. You do lose a lot of mana as well. If they buff mana, maybe it becomes a bit better, but even then. So for me, it's a fantastic class to main if you want to play PvP. The leveling speed is very nice as well. You get Ghost Wolf. I think it's a very fun class to play as well because you have a lot of flavor between the ranged DPS like a Boomy, but you have Elemental Shaman, which is a bit better, I think, in my opinion. Enhancement Shaman, that is a better version of Retribution Paladin, in my opinion, as well. And you have Restoration Shaman, which in turns is a bit of a passive healer, which is also working in PvP. And in PvE, you will always have a spot because of your totems. Thank you for subscribing to the channel, Science. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That is a subscriber on my private channel, so if you want to check that out, please do check it out in my description. So Shaman, if I played Horde, 100% I am playing Shaman, man. There is no way I'm not going to play Shaman because that was always a regret of mine not playing Shaman in Vanilla, at least in Classic. I played it in Vanilla, never went level 60 with it. I did play it in TBC, in Wrath of the Lich King and such, but I never played it in Vanilla, and I want to actually do some unbreakable things. So I think if I'm going Horde, 100% I'm going Shaman. Warlock. I think Warlock is it's very fun in PvP. It's very boring in PvE. In PvE, you're pretty much just casting chaos like Shadow Bolt. It's pretty much the same as Mage, where you're casting just one thing and that's it. You put a curse here and there, and that's it. Um, uh, I'm going to put man, I'm going to put it in A tier. I can't put it in B tier because for me, Warlock is a very good caster. You cannot go wrong if you're playing Warlock. You cannot go wrong if you're playing like Destruction, Affliction, or Demonology. Demonology is a bit bad though. Let's be honest, since it's not TPC. But I think in general, you have like you have Ruin. You have a lot of great things going on, man. Ha. I think I don't know if I'm going to main one because once you have played demonology, like not demonology, but also demonology, but like if you played Warlock in Wrath of the Lich King, it's very hard to come back to vanilla because a lot of things are a bit simplistic in vanilla for Warlocks compared to Wrath of the Lich King. But also in general, you do miss a few things, like for example, Unstable Affliction. Um, I think Unstable Affliction is present, right? I don't remember. I think Unstable Affliction is there. Guys, I need to check real quick. I'm gonna check it real quick. Let's see. Because I'm confused. You don't even have Unstable Affliction, man. That's the issue I have. Unstable Affliction is such a fun ability, and you don't have it in Classic. So your dots is pretty much just corruption, agony, immolation, and that's it, right? So and drain lifing and siphon life, whatever. But you don't really have unstable affliction. So that by itself, I think it's just not enough for me to be playing affliction. Destruction Warlock, very fun. Conflag does a lot of damage. Shadowbolt crits, very nice. All those things are very nice, but it feels like you're playing a bit of a gimp like class compared to Wrath or even TBC. It's still very fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm still a Warlock fan. If I had a third character or fourth character, it would be Warlock. But I don't think I would main one because just in general, I think the only thing that you have something going for you is that you have little to no competition. You don't have a lot of Warlock players out there. It's one of the least played classes in any senses. Every time you start a new fresh, you have so little warlocks. Although warlocks are bis for leveling, bis for everything. Even in hardcore, if you're playing like classic WoW hardcore, warlock is such a great class with great specs. But I think in general, if you want to main one, I would go maybe for mage because there is a lot more variety towards that, and your class feels a bit better. Warrior, I think Warrior is still a S tier class to main. I'm going to remove the C tier because I think just in general, Classic has so many good classes and so many much flavors, and I can't see myself put it things in B tier. Although you can see it as a top 9, so my top 10, my top 9 would be something like that. Like I think Warrior, Shaman, Hunter, Priest, and then you have Rogue, Mage, Warlock, Druid, and Paladin as my top 9. And why Warrior top 1? I think Warrior is one of those classes that if you're playing one and you're maining one and you get gear, you get better and you feel better, you're doing every time you raid, you get like another piece here and there, you get another like damage boost because of a good weapon. You're going in PvP with your two-hander. You go Fury Warrior with your warrior in PvE and raids and wreck people, wreck things. I think it's fantastic. You do need rank 14 if you want to be super mega strong in PvP. But I think and hope that in Season of Mastery 2 they do change the PvP ranking system. Would be so nice if they actually changed it. But yeah, I mean warrior. If I had to main a melee, it would be warrior probably over rogue. It could be that I'm going rogue though because I never really played rogue in classic. I did play a bit of warrior in classic. Though in vanilla I did play rogue, but never at like a higher level and such. But in general, it feels better to play warrior because you have always some kind of progression. While, for example, druid, your power level as a feral druid is kind of the same until AQ, where you get another book for your ferocious bite, and even then, ferocious bite is not something you're going to press that much. Um, yeah, that's the issue, right? Especially in PvP where you do shift a lot and such. So I don't know, man. In Warrior, it just feels super good. I think in PvP you do need a heal bot, some dispels here and there because you're going to sit in Frost Novas. But I think it is a fantastic class to main and to play. So if you want to main a class and you want to put your all into it, I think Warrior is such a great class for that. I think Shaman is also a great class to main because you have a lot of variety. It is not like a jack of all trades like Druid. It has some real points where you are superior. Like for example, elemental shamans can just blast people. That's just a fact. Enhancement Shaman has also some blasting possibilities. You have Purge, which is insane in Classic as well. A Restoration Shaman as well. You have your Hunter, still one of the best classes in the game that can actually feel very nice in the first phases, and afterwards it will fade out a bit. But again, let's hope in Season of Mastery 2 that they do change a few things. But please let me know what you think about this video. I have a voice crack, unfortunately, because my voice is cracked, but also I'm just a bit of sick. So again, thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. We will cover a lot more videos on this channel as well. I want to have 2 channels dedicated, for one for retail, one for classic, and this one will be for my classic content, and I'm excited to do even more content for this channel. So please, thank you for everything. We will catch each other very soon in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.